midpoints are such a good way of seeing which planets really are friendly with which others, and how they trigger responses in the individual. If you say, what exactly is a midpoint? Well, it's the exact degree between any two planets or asteroids or trans-Neptunians or the personal points. At that point, there's greater friendship. And I don't know about you, but I find that really, really useful. I'm endlessly watching and learning how these planets fuse together. It's as though each one is like a radio station. And what you want to find with a midpoint is, can you get 3 radio stations that will come together and you suddenly understand something you didn't understand before? When we look at a midpoint, supposing you said to me, all right, that's very nice, Christine, but I'm not really interested in the sun moon. I've got a relationship that's not going so well at the moment. So actually, what I want to know is, I want to know if I could revive this partnership. Is there any chance that I could revive this? So I might then be, just in hearing that, I might be attracted and want to know a little bit more about your point. Right, that would be like a love revival. So I could scan it with my eye and think, okay, halfway between the two of these are in fixed signs. So I'm probably going to find a line here. It doesn't kind of look as though there's a planet there at the moment. Okay, I better go in, and I'll go in, as they say, under the hood. What we have with any, I want to tell you a story about this. There was a very famous astrologer, Joan Quigley, who was Nancy Reagan's astrologer. Now, Nancy Reagan was the wife of Ronald Reagan, who was one of the presidents of the United States. And she advised them both. She was a walking ephemeris. I mean, I sat with her one night. We were all of us having dinner together, and she went round the table without an ephemeris, just being given somebody's date of birth, and she could do Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, all the others, right off the top of her head. It was remarkable, because she organized the talks that President Reagan had with the then Russian president, Gorbachev. So anyway, the reason I'm telling you the story is that in the class I was teaching at the time for the Faculty of Astrological Studies, and we had a newscaster in this particular group, and she came to me, Ellen, and she said she was going to be able to interview Joan Quigley. And Joan had been very specific about the time that this interview should take place. And she said, do you know why? So I quickly drew up the chart, and I realized what Joan Quigley had done. Joan lived on the west coast of America. So she'd drawn the chart for what suited her over there. But this was going to be a London broadcast. So I said to Ellen, hold on, how long do you think the broadcast's going to go on? And she said, oh, it's about a 12-minute segment or whatever. So I allowed for the ascendant and the midheaven to tick over all that time. I said, oh, I don't know about this. I think there might be a problem. I said, I think there might be a breakdown with the communications, or, you lose the thread of the conversation or something. Well, to the minute, to the absolute minute, the technology actually did break down. What I'd done with that was I had been looking at it as though it was a clock. And that's the advantage with doing midpoints, is you can look at every single minute. But the more you get into it, the more you're going to want to develop the idea. A way of doing this, and people quite often talk about midpoint trees. It's just because they look like little trees, right? They're not trees. You can create, the machines will always do this for you. They will create a little tree. You can get this from astro.com and places. There are places you can do this online. Stephen King, the writer, who does the horror writing, he has Chiron in Scorpio on this sun moon midpoint. So each of those examples gives you an idea. It's the first place to go and look if you're trying to understand someone. Is Princess Anne, King Charles's sister, right? She has the moon exactly on the ascendant midheaven midpoint. She, as we know, has given enormous service. She does very much the Virgo thing, right? She's patron of God knows how many things. And she is said to be the most hardworking of all of the royals. Uranian astrology is a very big field, and I didn't go down that route because that really is another level. And there are so many parts of astrology, and you cannot get into all of them. You just can't. And some of them are just an easy fit. It's a bit like, I can get some genes on, but not others.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you so much. See ya. Bye.
And I've been waiting in the shadow of the sun.